Hey everyone, welcome to the series called Film Scoring 101. Today I'm going to do a review on Musiversal and their orchestral recording services. Let's get into it. If you're an orchestral or film composer, chances are you probably remember the $99 Orchestra. After rebranding and a huge makeover, they are now known as Musiversal. Musiversal offers a few different levels of musicians, and especially within their orchestral recording services. I've actually had the opportunity to record with all three, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience with them.
Okay, so what we have here is the Musiversal front page. What this is referring to here is their new subscription service in which you can actually just pay a monthly fee and have unlimited access to their roster of musicians. If you click up here on instruments, you'll see that they offer a wide variety of instrumentalists, percussionists, guitarists, bassists, and all sorts of really cool stuff. I haven't actually used this service, so I can't say too much about it. What I'm going to be covering today is their orchestras. So with their orchestral services, you kind of need to know a little bit more about how to compose for a large ensemble. And they have a few different ensembles here. So what's really cool about these services is that they are really affordable. If you are working on a low budget short film or game or any type of project, really, these guys are really the way to go. And you can book for session slots that are less than 1 hour. Usually with the other orchestral services, they're going to ask for a minimum of 1 hour. Some may even ask for 2 or 3. But with Musiversal, it's really great if you're only needing to record even just 30 seconds of music, 1 minute of music. And so this is definitely an advantage with this service. So when you click on a service, you're going to be taken to this page. And on this page, you're going to be given the recommended times for the amount of music that you want to record. Down here, you'll see your lineup, but I would really pay attention to this. And this is really important, especially if you're choosing either the Budapest or the Prague strings. With the London strings, you'll probably be able to get away with a little bit more. If you're recording 3 minutes of music, really the safest bet is to book a 30-minute recording session. And that's because, if you have your mock-up and you say, "Oh, my music is not that hard," well, remember that the mock-up is being played by a machine, by your samples, which is perfect. These are actual human beings, and so it may take a couple of takes to really get your composition to the level that you want it, or with the expressivity that you want, the nuances that you want. And so if you've never been in a live recording session, this is actually something that takes up a little bit of time. And so you really, really need to budget for that. So the first bad thing about any of these services is that usually you will not be able to pick your recording dates. They usually just book the sessions for 3 hours or 4 hours, and they'll chop that up into 30 minutes or even less time slots. Basically, they will get to choose the date as well as the actual time during the day in which your music will be recorded. And that can be a problem if you have a day job, or if you have other commitments that are going to take up your time. And the other thing is that if you are based in Europe, then it's not going to be much of a problem for you. But if you are based in the United States, more than likely your session will be at a really ugly time. I've had sessions with Musiversal from as early as 4 a.m. to as late as 11 a.m. And like I said, if you have a day job or something and you're required to be at work at 8 a.m., then obviously you're going to miss your session, and that could be a real problem. So the Budapest strings are the lowest tier, and while they are still great musicians, I did notice a difference in the finesse of the quality of the musicians. I actually recorded with the Budapest Orchestra just last month for a client, As of the making of this video, I cannot share that result just yet, but when that is ready, I'll go ahead and link it here for you all to listen. Moving on, the next level of orchestra is the Prague Strings. Now, with the Prague Strings, I actually haven't used these guys myself for anything that I have written, but I did use this service for a student of mine. So one of my composition students was getting ready to go to college, and in order to give him a live recording for his college applications, through the school, we managed to book a session for his music. He recorded, I believe it was 1.5 minutes worth of music, and I was really pleasantly surprised with the level of quality. So these guys are definitely a step up from the Budapest Strings, and if you're working on a professional project, I would definitely recommend not going any lower than this. So you'll notice that the session lengths here are a little bit different, and you'll notice that they can get more music in less time. This is probably what I would settle for if I were, writing music just for me or something. I would use this service instead. Again, down here you'll see the lineup of the orchestra, and the better the musicians, the smaller the lineup can actually be. So the project that I'm going to be linking at the end of the video was recorded with the London Strings. The London Strings were only 10 players, but it sounds a lot bigger because their ensemble skills are just really, really high. And so I was just completely blown away by the London session. So the London session, as of right now, is not being offered by Musiversal. When I asked about it, they said that it's due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although, I do assume that they will bring that service back. So the London service looks like this. So you'll see here that the same thing goes. There's a 7-minute session for 300 euros. I guarantee you the 7-minute session will not cost that anymore. These are prices from about 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And the 7-minute session is what I booked to record Arabesque. You'll see here that they did have tentative dates already. Sometimes they have that, sometimes they don't. And you'll notice that this is only 10 string players. So my piece was recorded at Angel Recording Studios, which unfortunately closed, I think, in the summer of last year. That's quite a shame because it really was a beautiful studio. Before I go on to talk more about the London Strings, I just want to cover some of the things of what the account looks like with Musiversal and another con in their service. So when you create an account with Musiversal, basically the point is just so that they can keep track of you, so that you can upload your materials and have a name assigned to whatever email you're using to communicate with them. The problem is that when you submit your materials, you don't receive any confirmation that they received your score, that they received your parts, if you have pre-recorded stems, that they received your stems or anything like that. And that can be, a little daunting, especially if you have a client that you're having to report to and keep updated with the progress. So when you log in, this is what you see. And after I booked my Budapest session for my client, I expected my Budapest session to appear here. And so when I didn't see it at all, I did panic a little bit because, I was on a tight deadline. And so basically I reached out and I asked them, here's my receipt, where is my session? And they replied with saying that this portal is really just for people that are on the subscription service. It would be nice to be able to see your sessions even if you're not part of the subscription. And the other thing that I think would be really cool would be for Musiversal to have some sort of Google Drive or Dropbox interface where you could see your files that have been uploaded. It happens to all of us that even after proofreading once, twice, or 3 times, that you may decide to change something in your score or in your parts. It could be something as simple as a dynamic marking, something as complex as changing an entire part. But I should be able to swap parts out before the session or before a certain deadline for the score, if I want to make those changes. And instead, I would have to email the score and the parts every single time, and again with no confirmation. So it would be really difficult for me to assure myself and my client that Musiversal has the most updated version of the score. And that is something a little annoying about their online accounts that I wish they would really add. Okay, so what I have up in front of me now is the score to the piece that I recorded with the London Strings. So as I said, that the London Strings, I booked a 7-minute session, which is really, really short, for 1.5 minutes of music. And I believe that the suggestion was, if you want to record 1 minute of music, that you should book 7 minutes of session time. So I actually ended up pushing the limit here. And I only felt comfortable doing this because I have worked with unionized London players before. I have had that privilege back in 2016 when I actually got to conduct the orchestra at Air Studios. I knew that I was going to be working with, creme de la creme, top tier, different breed of musician. And so I decided to take the risk. I was trying out the service for the first time, and I said, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure that they can probably do it. Of course, I did write my music so that it wouldn't be overly complex. It's something that I felt was pretty simple to read. So this is Arabesque, and I was just completely blown away by how well they actually sight read on the first take. The first take was already something that I would be happy to use. And so the rest of the session time, I really used it just to get the nuances in, really minor details. I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of this so you can hear it. Now, the piece does have it does have a backing track. It does have samples in it for the percussion and all of that. So I'm going to play just the strings alone so that you can hear it. So like I said, they're sight reading at that point, and it just sounds so pristine. They're so together. They're so in tune. And it was just like, wow, like these guys really are the Hollywood level musicians. The other thing is that once you kind of get a little bit of experience with live sessions, you're going to notice that you don't have to give them every single little comment that comes to mind. In fact, if you have a really good conductor working on the session, there's actually going to be a significant amount of autonomy where the conductor really saw what I was trying to get at and really understood what I was going for. And he was just taking the comments, right out of my mouth without me having to take the time to explain it to them. So that was something that I really appreciated about my session. It was just fantastic. The most fantastic 7 minutes ever. So it was a really, really neat experience. And so if you are working on a real professional project, something that's going to go to a big film festival, or, something that could even rival a AAA game if you're working in games, the London Strings is definitely something that I would recommend. My only hope for the future with Musiversal is that they add other London players to their services, that they add brass and woodwinds, and that they're somehow able to network with the musicians in London. That would be absolutely fantastic. One last thing I wanted to cover, which was something that was not available when I recorded with the London Strings, is that now they offer other services other than just the recording session itself. So they actually now offer video coverage, which I always recommend getting, because a video will always be able to retain potential clients' attention better than just your audio clip. So if you have video of your recording sessions, it legitimizes, the composer's profession a little bit, unfortunately. And so this is something that I always recommend that you invest in a little bit. Mixing and mastering services. This is a big one. I have never used their mix engineers. I've never used their mix engineers because I have my own mix engineers that I go to that have orchestral experience, and they're just, great individuals. But the post-production of your piece really can make or break your composition, even if you have good execution and on the musical side. So this is something where I would always pay attention to who it is that you're hiring to mix and master your music. Not just any mix engineer will be able to mix orchestral music. Orchestral music really is a different animal, and so you need to have somebody that has experience or at least a little bit of schooling or training in that musical medium, so that they know, how to treat the music appropriately. It really can make a huge difference in the way it sounds. And I'll probably be covering that in a completely different video where I show the raw versions of a large orchestral session that I've had before versus the polished and, final result. And of course, you can bundle these two services together, which would be great if you're starting out, if this is maybe your first recording session, or if you don't have a network of mix engineers that you trust to mix an orchestral track. This is definitely the way to go. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my review on Musiversal. Like I said earlier, they are a fantastic service, and I definitely recommend them if you are an up-and-coming composer or if you've never had a live recording session. This is a great place to start. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to Arabesque, which was recorded with the London Strings in a 7-minute session. I hope you enjoy my music. This is the final result with all stems mixed and mastered. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you here next time on Film Scoring 101.